Well, let's look now at what the future holds for Russia and India's relationship. Joining us is Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. He's a professor and dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs in New Delhi. Sir, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. Of course, the BRICS countries have been building up their influence. Do you feel that we're in a shift, perhaps even a major shift in global power balance?
Oh, we can take that for granted now. President Putin's visit to India today has underlined this shift in a very dramatic way, because both our Prime Minister and President Putin have reaffirmed faith in a multipolar world, which obviously talks about, in a theoretical way, this shift that we are all witnessing before our own eyes. I think the close synergies between Russia and India continue to grow despite occasional niggles and irritants over, defense deals and so on, which do not come through or sometimes are delayed. But the point is, at the strategic level, what the two leaders today, our Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and Russian President Putin, emphasize is that there is hardly any conflict of interest between these two countries, these two major powers, which I would say form the crux of the BRICS grouping as well as the larger emerging economies grouping. The fact that Russia is going to take over the G20 presidency and is going to host the next summit is also significant, because both leaders affirm a faith in continuing to think about how to reform the global economy and how to transform the international political economy in a way that does not repeat the excesses of the past, which were done under the neoliberal order. Both countries share this strong state tradition, and that has helped to regulate some of the excesses and the greed of the corporate and the financial sector. And having a strong state that has a regulatory capacity to be able to prevent massive fraud is clear gift that Russia and India can bring to the world through the G20 forum. There are many other issues they've discussed, but I believe these are the key institutions, BRICS, G20, through which we are able to transform the world order through concrete diplomatic bilateral cooperation.
Sir, you say that there is no conflict of interest between these two countries, but we do have to acknowledge that Russia and India haven't always seen eye to eye. I mean, we've had nuclear negotiations stalled, a few arms deals that had collapsed in the past few years. Talk a little bit about whether there's any obstacles that need to be tackled in order to really sort of go forward here.
Yeah, I mean, both countries have a list of, a few sore points, to put it candidly. The Indians want the aircraft carrier to be delivered faster, and there have been issues about, attempting to try and, increase the civilian part of the trade, because the civilian part of the trade has unfortunately remained limited to only $10 billion per annum. And we would like to see it growing much faster. India, China, for example, is over $70 billion US. And so we would need to rev up those fronts. From the Russian side, there has been some telecom company dispute and so on. But as I said before, if you look at the big picture, in any strong, solid, special relationship like ours between Russia and India, you will find the occasional niggle here and there, which will be ironed out and smoothed out at the highest political level, simply because the will at the top is there for this relationship to prosper and to bring concrete benefits to the people of both our countries, as well as to change and transform the world order. The discussion on Afghanistan, I must mention, today between our leader and yours was again very significant, because that's where we spoke about how we need to plan together for the transition after the Americans leave in the following couple of years. And it's important that Russia and India, there's no daylight or gap between the two, so that we put up a front wherein we have coordinated positions and we are able to influence the other regional players constructively and to bring everybody to the table, because everybody knows that after the Americans leave, the mess will be borne by the neighboring countries in the region, which includes Russia and India. So we are stakeholders in the crisis in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I'm sure the leaders today, when they mentioned this in the communique, would have gone much further behind the scenes to try and bring a solid coordination on this front.
Well, speaking of defense, I mean, you're talking about Russia and Indian defense collaborations here, which will certainly create a significant partnership in Asia. But how does this compare to, for example, America's military buildup in the region outside of Afghanistan? Is there sort of a potential for a clash between this Asian, Indian, Russian sort of rise in terms of military buildup and also the U.S.?
Well, I think each country is looking towards its own interests vis-a-vis its neighbors and its alliance patterns. What is important is that these defense deals will definitely increase Asian self-reliance and capability, or Eurasian, let's call it, because Russia is very much involved in this, and it will help us also offset some of the technical conditionalities and the lack of technology transfer that, for example, India has always faced with regard to American weapons transfers. So we will need this kind of cooperation. Important thing is Russia and India are also doing joint developments in advanced military equipment, and no other country in the world does India have the luxury of doing this. So I think the level of trust is so deep that it can only go sky high, and the sky is really the limit.
Well, certainly sky's the limit. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, professor and dean at the Jindal School of International Affairs.